Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're doing fantastic today. 7 p.m., a little early-ish. People are starting to getting into the building, so that's why now. Oh, right. Thanks very much. Wait, we don't start Friday night. Need a beer. Of course you need a beer, but I don't drink. I only drink water and coffee. That's all I need. Hey, Chicago here, of course, my American fellows. Oh, Joseph Y., the singer, Ben, the guy is going to be singing. He's from New York, and he moved to Canada like when he was 2. So he's technically an Alberta now at this point. Well, let's see how it goes. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. I want to see where you guys are watching from. I want to see on the chats there. So let's going to see how many people we have here. It's climbing up. It's climbing up here. That's good. So the show is going to start very soon from what I read and what I've seen here. They're just bringing the people in here in the building. You can't see on the camera, but it's almost like a Quonset that was turned out into a community hall or something like that effect. Just kind of cool. Oh, we have people from Run Right. You good? You
ready?
I'm ready. I'm streaming right now. People can hear you.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight we're going to have 5 speakers for you, but before we do, I'll go over a couple of housekeeping. As most of you probably know better than me, the bathrooms are at the back, and the emergency exits are to the side and at the back as well. One question I'll ask you is, how many people is this their first time to an independence type meeting? That's a good, well, welcome. Hopefully we get all your questions answered for you tonight. Our first speaker of the evening, what do I say about him? Where did he disappear? Oh, there he is a cartoonist and a songwriter. And he's going to close his speech with a great song he wrote for the independence movement. And I would encourage you to go to bencrane.com and download a copy of it, because I would love to see the song trend. And he's corrected me, it's not 99 cents, it's $1.50. So it's $1.50 to download it. I would love to see this song trending. Wouldn't it be great to have an independent song get up in the charts? So I would encourage everybody to check it out. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Mr. Ben Crane.
Thank you. I'm here till Thursday. Well, thanks, Shane, and thank you guys. This is cool. This is sort of like living room. I like this. This is mighty fine. We want to really thank you for coming out tonight. And oh, it didn't work. Okay. Most of you guys know me as an entertainer, a humorist, someone who don't stay serious for very long, and you're right in most cases. But those of you who actually know me better are familiar with the little-known fact that I do go deep on occasion, and that doesn't bother me at all. It's just I don't stay there all that long because my mind is quite twisted. But my wife, Charmin, and I, who's here with me tonight, we live on the family home section with about a 150-mile view of the blue Canadian Rockies. We just love that. Our grandkids are 6th generation on that land. And Charm actually knew, as in spent time with both her great-grandparents, who were the ones who bought the land off the original homesteader some 115 years ago. So we have a connection to the land, quite literally. And this is where we get our values from. They're passed down from generation to generation. And tonight I want to talk about values. We see it every day. After visiting with Grammy, our 2 grandkids visit with her, and they live on a house across the yard. And at the end of the day, at 6 o'clock, our 5-year-old grandson always takes his 4-year-old sister's hand and walks her across the parking lot to protect her from vehicles and coyotes and other things that go bump in the night. And then he gets up on the deck. He opens the door for her and lets her in. He's 6 years old, 5 years old. And he says, ladies first. Values are passed down because they work. So my job here tonight is not to try and convince you with facts. We got really smart people here who are the rest of the panelists, the speakers tonight. They're far better qualified than I am for that, but I do simply just want to let you know the heart of why my values no longer line up with the values of this country. There are 3 words that have become kind of the subheading of the grassroots movement. You know what they are? Faith, family, freedom. And so I wanted to unpack them tonight in the light of values. We'll start backwards just because I'm twisted, remember? Freedom. And most folks, when they hear that term, they think of freedom from tyranny, oppression, government overreach, dictatorship, all that ugly stuff that controlling people love to dish out. But I wonder what would happen if we thought about it as in the terms of freedom to. Freedom to thrive, not just survive. Freedom to be what you was built to be. Freedom to run your business the way you know it should be done. Free from interference and micromanagement by people nowhere near you, who've never heard of you, have no vested interest in you, or even give a flying rip about you. Freedom to associate, to speak, and to hold your own ideas and opinions. And free to fail, because you know you're going to learn from your mistakes. A truly free society will boast the most successful, highly motivated people and the most vibrant economy, with citizens who breathe life into their communities, not suck it out. And we're experiencing an alarming loss of freedoms. Is there any hope? I always wondered that, because I have not felt this kind of hopelessness in my entire life. But I do have hope. What if we could change all of that and take back the freedoms that have been stolen? That kind of makes me excited just a little bit. Family. The strength of a community is directly related to the strength of its families, I believe. And families' strength relies on and is a direct result of solid values. You get anybody without values, they just flopping around in the current. Family is parents passing down values to their kids. And family is staying in touch with grandpa and grandma, listening to their stories and learning from their experiences. Family teaches all manner of values. It's amazing. Just think about it. The value of other-orientedness. A bathroom Sunday morning or school day mornings in a family of 4 girls. There's some, you got to think of each other there. The value of working together, of cooperation and accomplishing goals with teamwork. The value of getting along with other people with differing opinions than yourself. We don't know anything about that, do we? Hearing them, understanding them, not resorting to calling them names when you lose the argument. And that's tough for me because I can't argue my way out of a wet paper bag if I was paid to. You can always change your friends, but you're stuck with family. See, I believe that Albertans are individual thinkers. We make our own decision, and that applies to family. We want to raise our own kids without the government undermining or overriding the values of our families. Choice in education and complete decision-making in healthcare are just a couple examples. Freedom and family and faith. This was a fun one. And here's honestly where I get my hope back. I hear folks saying that running a country based on Christian values is shoving religion down somebody's throat. I suggest the contrary. That the whole idea of shoving anything down somebody's throat is totally contrary to God. He operates on the basis of free will. So in fact, I don't believe you have to be a Jesus follower to appreciate truth and honesty, to appreciate respect and fairness, to appreciate a no tolerance for stealing or deception, or to appreciate the idea of living in peace with your neighbor, or even your neighbor helping you out in a crisis. See, these are all Judeo-Christian values that our country was actually raised on, and they benefit absolutely everybody. But to the Christian, if you're a Christian tonight here, I'll say this. And by the way, if you're not in this category, don't sweat it. Feel free to tune me out for a second. However, I will give you a tiny bit of a spoiler alert here, because you still get in on the incredibly huge benefits of what I'm talking about. It's a win-win no matter what way you slice it. But back to the Christian, do you actually fully understand the impact of your personal faith on your country? God says, if my people who are called by my name, he says, you do 3 things: humble yourself, seek my face and pray, and turn from whatever you're packing that is against me. He says, I'll do 3 things. It's a promise. I'll hear you. I'll forgive you. Woohoo! And I'll heal your land. When I thought of that and I read that, I actually lost it, because that was my heart cry. I want to see a healed land where we can really thrive. So can you imagine what the new country of Alberta could look like with a direction like this? And the cool thing is that all of this would first day on my new lips. This would positively benefit even the most devout atheist. How you handle your faith, ladies and gentlemen, will impact your country. Faith, family, freedom. These are all values that have been time-tested because they work. Time-tested for eons. Entire countries have been formed on this because it works. I've heard the nostalgic concern that people don't want the breakup of our country. I get it, because no divorce is pretty. But folks, I believe this country's already broke up. Alberta is on the outside from the onset, on purpose, with intent. Change is literally impossible, and doing nothing has now become the greater risk. We're not the ones leaving, in my opinion. The rest of the country has veered sharply off into foreign waters. No pun necessarily intended, or maybe it was. See, while we hold these time-proven values, the very leaders of our country have increasingly trampled on them and flaunted their disdain of them by conflicts of interest, massive personal gain, destructive overreaching laws, putting the values of criminals ahead of law-abiding citizens, scandal after scandal, all with an increased Teflon, where the law sides with them and offers us absolutely no protection from that corruption. I just don't agree with that. The Canada that we fondly remember is actually closest resembled by Alberta, I believe. We have one chance, folks, and it's a rare chance, a privilege given to us to reestablish these same time-honored values into a new constitution, a new country, a new future. The only way to accurately predict your future is to write it. Here's our only chance, neighbor. Let's grab a pen and start writing. You've had it now. This song just kind of came out when Shane said, "Hey, you're a songwriter. You can write a song about this." I thought, yeah, right. But I went home and I couldn't get the idea out of my head, and all these concepts started coming in. And I'm trying to learn it, so I got the cheat sheets here just in case I mess up. But I really believe this, and it all just kind of wrote itself. And so I hope that's something that matches with you. Go ahead there, son. Yep.
Only know goes back 100 years, steeped in deep tradition of blood and sweat and tears. The value of hard work, common sense, and hope and family and freedom. The value of our youth makes us wanna hold on to what we know is right. In face of opposites, stand our ground and fight. My Alberta, unseen in my blood, in my bones, make a stronger every day. When the body tries to move you, tear it all away. I just draw a line there in the sand, stand my ground and say, Alberta, run. Living on the land, watching life come and grow, working hard and playing hard, sunshine and in snow. We don't really ask for much, 'cause we know that God provides, and has given us all the things we need to enjoy this life. And so it makes us hold on what we know is right, and then we face stand up around and fight. My Alberta, running in my blood, in my bones, it gets stronger every day. When somebody wants to move in, strip it all away. Start the land, stand the ground and say, I Alberta, you can't hide, stay fine. Make us who we are today, and life's this good, it's the right way. I am running. Can't dig 'em up or pull 'em out. They grow deeper every day. When somebody tries to move it, tear it all away. Draw a line there in the sand, stand your ground and say, my Alberta, run deep, run deep. Yeah.
I appreciate that so much. Tanya, you're up. Oh, we appreciate that, guys. Thanks very much. The next gal we're going to, actually the only gal we're going to introduce to you tonight is Miss Tanya Clemens. And she's from down kind of Gleason, Arrowwood. Where is it exactly? Blackie, yeah. She's a mom, she's a rancher, she's just a common everyday person, and that's why we like her so much. Ladies and gentlemen, Tanya Clemens.
Good job, that's great. How are we here, Max? Can I go like this? He's gonna adjust something, I'm sure. Yep.
You should see the stairs in this hall.
Is that good for your camera too?
It's a different height.
Okay.
They see me right now.
Oh.
They see me rolling.
And they see you rolling. That's the most singing that I can do.
I think you're better off.
Do you want me to just hold it? How about I just hold it?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. That'll work.
That will work.
Okay, thanks, Max. And thanks, Ben. I love when Ben sings that song. I think it's fantastic. That is a very, very good one. So I'm pretty excited to put some farming videos to that and make some more reels, because that's what I like to do. So I'm Tanya Clemens. We farm southeast of Calgary, close to Okotoks, High River, Blackie, Mossley area, not really particularly close to any one place, but kind of in the middle of the Great Prairie farm area. And I come tonight not as a politician, not as an economist or a constitutional lawyer, but as a farmer, a teacher, and a mom, and as someone who loves this land with absolutely everything I've got. And this is my Alberta flag. I kind of bring it now as my prop. I look at it and I think of the thousands and thousands of people and the decades and decades of effort that have brought us here today. All the work, all the courage, all the conversations that led us to this moment where we're signing a petition to force a referendum on Alberta independence and delivering us this hope. I'm just gonna lean it here. That's the flag that I fly on my combine every harvest, and I have it mounted to a hockey stick because that just kind of feels right. And every morning this past harvest, I would walk out across the fields and I'd see that flag waving above my combine cab. And I would also see my family working together, one running the grain cart, one on the semi, hauling a load of grain, another on another combine. And in those quiet moments, I felt peace. I wasn't thinking about Ottawa. I wasn't thinking about politics. I was thinking about the land, the sky, the work in front of us, and the people that I love. And that's what freedom feels like to me in my little corner of Alberta, where hard work is respected, where family matters, and where life is built, not governed. But over the past decade, that freedom has felt more fragile than ever. Every year, decisions made farther and farther away reach deeper into our homes, our schools, our farms, our businesses, and even our bank accounts. And that's why I want to be clear tonight. I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm not even here to convince you of anything. But I do want to offer you a few honest questions, the same ones I've had to sit with myself. Because an independence referendum is coming. And when you walk into that voting poll and you check that box on your ballot, I want you to fully understand the significance of where you place that X. So I have 5 questions for you tonight, and I believe every Albertan should be asking themselves these. The first one is, when you look honestly at Alberta today, are we actually better off than we were a generation ago? Not just in how we feel, but in opportunity, affordability, and confidence in the future. The housing costs have exploded, groceries cost more, energy bills are higher, young families are stretched thin. And for the first time in Alberta's history, many of our kids don't automatically believe their future will be better than their parents. That question isn't political, it's a personal one, a household one. And if answering it makes you feel uncomfortable, that discomfort is probably worth listening to. Second question is, at the end of the day, who should decide Alberta's future? Ottawa or the people who live here? Who controls our resources? Who sets our priorities? Who bears the consequences of the decisions being made? Because right now, policies that are written thousands of kilometers away are shaping how we heat our homes, fuel our vehicles, run our farms, and operate our businesses. Albertans elect provincial governments, but Ottawa overrides them. So ask yourself honestly, are you feeling represented or managed? And when you look at Canada today, do you feel that your faith, your family, your freedom are truly being honored and respected? Third question, if Alberta consistently gives more than it receives, how long is that sustainable? That's not anger or resentment, that's just math. Every single year, Alberta sends between $20 and $28 billion more to Ottawa than what we get back in services for. And that works out to be about $6,000 per Albertan. Or for the average family of 4, that's $24,000 that are sent away that are not providing services or coming back to that family. And that's every single year. That's money that you've earned, money that could have paid down debt, built hospitals, funded schools, supported families, or lowered our taxes. No household could survive like this. No business could operate this way. So why are we being told as a province we should? Fourth question, and this is the question that weighs on me the most. What happens if we do nothing? Because standing still is still a decision, and every decision has consequences. Doing nothing doesn't preserve the Alberta we love, it just slowly replaces it. There will be fewer opportunities for our kids, higher costs for young families, less control over the work people build with their own hands. And Alberta has tried to make these changes. We have tried for 120 years. We've tried negotiation, we've tried reform, we've tried patience. From the National Energy Program, which deliberately cut Alberta down, to failed constitutional talks like Meech Lake and Charlottetown, to the firewall letter, the Fair Deal panel, equalization referendum, where 62% of Albertans voted no, and Ottawa still ignored us. Every time Alberta has tried to fix this confederation from the inside, the answer has been the same: no. The system is actually not broken. It's working exactly as it was designed to. And the fifth question, what kind of Alberta do we want to leave behind? For our children, for our grandchildren, for the people who will farm this land, build businesses, and raise families here long after we're gone? Do we want to leave an Alberta that is more dependent or more self-determined? Now, I know some people are thinking that independence feels overwhelming. It feels uncertain. It feels risky. But let me tell you something that I believe with my whole heart. The certainty of where Canada is headed is far scarier to me than any uncertainty that comes with building something new. Because uncertainty still has hope in it. Uncertainty still has possibility, and uncertainty still leaves room for courage. And if there is one thing Albertans understand, it is courage. This province was not built by people who waited to be told it was safe. It was built by people with grit, with faith, with calloused hands and stubborn optimism. By people who looked at that open land, brutal winters and long odds, and said, yeah, we can make a life here. Independence isn't easy, but neither was settling this province, and yet Albertans did it anyway. So tonight I want to give us permission not to be reckless, but to dream responsibly. What would life look like if Albertans actually kept more of what they earned? What would it feel like if there was no income taxes draining family paychecks? What if your dollar went further because the system finally worked for you? What if we had a direct democracy where civil servants truly served civilians, where decisions reflected our values, our priorities, and our way of life? That future isn't a fantasy, it's obtainable. It's just a question of will, because nations are not built by perfect people, they're built by people who believe they are capable. And Albertans are capable. We have the resources, we have the talent, we have the work ethic, and we have the heart. What we've been missing is permission. So before we leave tonight, let me return just once to those 5 questions. Are we actually better off than we were a generation ago? Who should decide Alberta's future? How long can an unsustainable system last? What happens if we do nothing? And finally, what kind of Alberta do we want to pass on? You don't have to answer those questions all tonight, but one day soon you will, probably around October 19th. And when that day comes, I believe Albertans will choose courage over complacency and self-determination over surrender. Because this province was built by people who believed they could, and we still can. So with that, I would just close and say, may Alberta be forever strong and free. And then next up, I would like to ask Ben Trudeau to come up. I know Ben has been on the circuit talking with Chris and the rest of the crew a little bit further up north, and this was actually the first time that we met tonight. So my introduction is going to be better when he fills in all the gaps, but from my conversation with him, I'm pretty excited that we've actually got to meet. He's already been involved in 2 referendums, the Quebec one in 1995 and the Charlottetown. So I speak to those quite often in my speeches. He's like the knowledge that actually understands them and knows behind the scenes of it. He's also been involved in numerous municipal and provincial campaigns, Take Back Alberta, Take Back Our Freedoms. He worked on Daniel Smith's campaign, and he has a book that he's brought up with him called Enough, Alberta's Roadmap to Constitutional Assertion, which sounds right down my alley too. So please, fill them in on all the details, but it's been very nice to meet you, and I'm excited to hear you talk.
Thank you. Thank you, Tanya. Nice to meet you too. I put a timer on because I've been scolded by Shane to go too long yesterday, so I'll make sure not to go over my time. Yes, so my name is Ben Trudeau. Yes, I'm related, 13th generation back. So we meet at the first Trudeau that came to Canada in 1648 to build Montreal. I come from a very politicized family. My dad is a speechwriter and a PR guy. I worked for all premiers of Quebec since the 60s, all Prime Minister of Canada, except Stephen Harper. I did work for Stephen Harper. I was assistant to Minister Jean-Pierre Blackburn at the first Harper government. That's what brought me to Alberta. I moved here in 2008 from Montreal. As a bachelor, met my wife, born and raised in Edmonton. She's sitting there with our youngest son. We have 4 kids, and yes, and I'm a proud Albertan now. So, as I often say, the deputy won't fly back my body when I pass. I'll be buried in this province. Which brings me to the subject of my book and why I wrote that book. I wrote that book, I realized that very few Western Albertan, or let's say, okay, I will, so the history of Canada known in Quebec and the history of Canada known in Western Alberta is very different. And the behavior of the politician in Quebec and the behavior of the politician in Western Canada is very, very different. And I realized that a lot of grievance that we have in this province can be solved and changed by a change of attitude from our politicians in this province. So, so that book that I wrote, the first portion of the book is the history of Canada, but not starting in 1867, starting in 1534. We have to remember that when the English won the 7-Year War, that ended up in 1769 by the North American Act, that the French have been there for over 225 years already. The French already colonized all the Midwest American. Chicago was started by Montrealers. In fact, the first mayor of New Orleans was a Trudeau, so the 3rd son of the same Trudeau. And when the English came in, there was already a lot of stuff done by the French, including a good association with the First Nation, which created the Métis. So we have to remember that the Métis came from that good association between French and Aboriginal people, which brings me to very important fact about First Nation is that the story of First Nations is very different than the one south of the border, and often they get mixed up. Like the first schools implanted in this country by the French were First Nation schools. So the French were teaching other French to speak First Nation language because they needed them for commerce, and the development of the trade was done peacefully with the French. So I will stop talking about the French, and I will fast forward to the referendum period. So you have to know that Quebec paid very dearly its independence position. So far, as of today, there's over 400 Quebecers that died for Quebec referendums for Quebec sovereignty, starting in 1837 with a civil war that nobody talks about, but on which the 12 generals of the Quebec Rebellion were hung in Montreal. And even here, Western Canada, the fight against the imperialist power date 1885 during the Indian War led by Louis Riel and Chief Big Bear in the prairies that was stopped by 8,000 soldiers that John A. Macdonald sent to the end of the railroad that was in Regina at the time. And Louis Riel was hung as well for his willingness to bring provincial assertion to the regime. So when we look at our constitution, we have to know our constitution to know what we can do with it. And Quebec became masters in manipulating, using, and maneuvering around the Westminster system. Like the 1995 referendum was super close. We lost by 54,000 votes. There was 95% participation of the voters. 5 million votes were cast for that referendum. 85,000 ballots were rejected, and the no won by 54,000. During that referendum, I was personally I start my doing politics very, very young, joining the Young Liberals. We quit the Provincial Liberal Party, all the youth together when Robert Bourassa was premier leader, went against us. We didn't agree with Charlottetown, so he went against us. So we all left the party and start campaigning for the no for Charlottetown. Following that, 94, we started a political party named the ADQ, and we got 7% of the vote at the September 1994 election. I was candidate in one of the riding, 22 years old, and our leader, 24 years old, was elected in his riding, and that put us to represent the balance of power for the referendum, because when they were polling, it was roughly half and half, with 7% of the people undecisive, which is the 7% that voted for us. So we were called at the negotiation table with Parizeau and Bouchard, and the question of the 95 referendum was carved by us. And the first computer, I'm very proud of that, the first computer that question was written on was my computer, because I type about the same speed as people speak, so I was dragged in all these meetings to be the secretary and take notes. And so the question of the 95 referendum was not for separation, because I've never been separatist. I'm still not a separatist. The question was, do you give the mandate to the Premier to negotiate a new deal with Ottawa? And if within 1 year you don't get to result, then we separate. Following that, following the no and following the 1998 judgment of the Supreme Court on our question, they came with the Clarity Act in 2000 to give 7 ways to prevent a province to separate. So what I discovered moving here in 2008 is how much our politicians are compliant. I'm not used to that. So in Quebec, no, we do law and we ask forgiveness never. When the Supreme Court rule against one of our law, we change a couple of words and we re-implement the law. And then, like for instance, Bill 101 in Quebec, it's 4 times the Supreme Court ruled against it, and I think we're the 5th round on the same law that we just reinstate. The non-withstanding clause in Quebec was used over 1,500 times since 1982. In the same day that here in Alberta, we voted Bill 1 under Premier Smith of the Sovereign Alberta within a United Canada, that same day, the Quebec legislature voted not to pay allegiance to the King anymore, or to the Crown. The next year, they voted to kick the Lieutenant Governor out of the province, not to accept any royal assent anymore, which is non-constitutional. Do you know what happened with that? Nothing. So Quebec collects its own taxes. Quebec has its own embassies. Quebec has 38 embassies across the world. When they meet, they never step in Canadian embassy. When Trump was elected, there was a party at the Canadian embassy. Well, no Quebecers at the party because they go to their own embassy in Washington. Quebec has 2 seats at the UN, not under Canada, under Quebec, all under our constitution. Quebec makes all of their, collect their own tax, takes care of their immigration. My sister is Vietnamese. My parents adopted her in 1981. And in 1987, my dad had all of the rest of the family come, including our parents. And in Quebec, when you immigrate to Quebec, you go through a five. Oh, my time is done. We go through a 5 days orientation for immigration, where we teach the immigrant the value of Quebecers, how does it work here, and that they will speak French. And then at the end of 5 days, they have to sign a contract. If they don't want to sign that contract, no driver's license, no health coverage. And so, to give you an example, in 1987, my dad backed my sister's parent family monetarily for them to immigrate to Canada. Her dad refused to sign the paper. He moved to Toronto. So, but to be able to do that, we need to know who we are. And we need to be able to tell the people who comes in our place who we are, and this is what you need to respect in this province. And then we can take control of that. So basically, my book speaks of all these things that Quebec does. After that, I think a thing missing is a vision. The big thing that Quebec did in 1978, and my dad wrote 6 of these 12 books. It's 12 books that are still applied today. Whatever party is there, is the direction of the Quebec society. In economies and all that, Quebec's handle its own pension plan since the beginning of CPP. When CPP started in 1965, Quebec decided not to join. When you look today, the Quebec pension plan, the CPP right now has a fund of 700 billion, representing 22 million insured. Quebec have a fund of 450 billion, so 150 billion less, representing 6 million insured. So the pension plan of Quebec is close to 3 times more performant than the CPP, and their pension plan gives them the obligation to invest in Canada. So maybe nobody knows that, but the pension plan in Quebec pension plan owns over 70 billion of assets across Canada, including Alberta. The Quebec government owns more real estate in Alberta than the Alberta government. They own the Cross Iron Mill, they own the Edmonton Outlet, they own the Southgate Mall, they have a full portfolio of retail investment in Alberta. So when we say that we've done everything, I don't agree. I believe that we're missing the courage just to apply under the Constitution stuff that we can, take care of our immigration, collect our own tax. This is step number 1. Keep your money. Again, the same day that we vote Bill 1, no, for sovereign Alberta in United Canada. Bill 2 was to add some condition to get out of the CPP. So what we've done, we barked at Ottawa, say, hey, we're sovereign, but keep our wallet. That's what we've done. So that attitude needs to change, and we need to shift that. And lastly, we need to define who we are. So in the end of my book, I define what is an Alberta. I am an Albertan. I don't speak like one, and I definitely not have a last name Albertan. I'm a Trudeau, but I'm definitely an Albertan. So we need to define who we are. And finally, I believe that petition is essential in the democracy of this province. We have to ask the question, we have to have discussions, and despite not being a separatist myself, because I believe that we can make way more way just by asserting our right under the Constitution, I still a big fan of that petition, very happy of that move and what the province is going through the process right now. So I invite you to me buy my book later on, and meanwhile I'll introduce Zane Novak. So Zane, the first time I met Zane, he was 1 inch tall. It was on a Zoom call on a Sunday night under TBA. Yeah. When I was, this is what brought me back to Alberta politics. Zane has been candidate for Calgary mayor. He's an old guy and a fervent and a proud Albertan, and a lot of respect for him.
Thank you so much, Ben. Ben brings out some very interesting points, and it proves that there is a lot of disparity between Alberta and Quebec. But before I get in that, maybe I'll just give a quick introduction to myself. Zane Novak, I only live about half an hour away from here. Lived in Calgary for a long time. Actually, foolishly ran for mayor in Calgary back in 2021. And I'm not a politician. I ran because I didn't like what politicians were doing. And I wanted to get in to hold them accountable. I'd done a lot of volunteer work in Calgary, about 23,000 volunteer hours in the nonprofit sector. And that brought me into contact with City Hall, with Mayor Nenshi, with even Trudeau. And I could see that it's a system that's broken, and I want to make a difference. I'm not just the type of person to just sit back and complain. So anyways, all of that took me down a very interesting path, and that's how I met people like Ben and Chris. But it helped me to realize that our political system is very broken. It doesn't represent us. It doesn't look after us. We live in a system where media controls so much. After the October 18th, 2021 municipal election, which I obviously didn't win, I had all 4 major reporters for the major news outlets contact me individually within a week, and they all said the same thing. They all said, Zane, you had the best campaign, you had the best platform, and you were the best spoken. However, we were told we couldn't cover you, we couldn't interview you, we couldn't carry your story, and we couldn't invite you to debates. It's a controlled system. And right now, you see with our movement, with Stay Free Alberta, Rise Alberta, there are so many out there who are promoting us to stand up and take account of where we are and get out to sign that petition, but yet you see the attack we're under. The media puts us down as being rednecks, as being illiterate. Well, you know what? I have always felt that since Alberta was literally forced, not negotiated, forced into Confederation in 1905, that we've been in an abusive relationship. We have always been here to be exploited by the East. It's written into the Constitution. I honestly don't feel, as much as I have so much respect for Ben and his research, everything he said is 100% accurate. I don't believe that we can fix this from the inside. I think that the Constitution is set up that we can't win. You look at the number of seats and ridings in even Ontario. I mean, let's face it, By the time a federal election gets 200 miles west of the Greater Toronto area, it's done. It's done. It doesn't matter what we vote in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and British Columbia. The election is decided. When you look at how the Supreme Court is decided, you know, who sits on it, who gets members on it. Even if we go to the Supreme Court, it's almost impossible to win. The same with the Senate. Look at how many senators there are in the Maritimes. With half the population of us, they have like 30 senators. Alberta has 6, even though we have double the population. All these things are stacked against us. And I think another thing that's interesting too is Quebec has always had a fiercely independent attitude. If you go to Quebec, you'll see the fleur-de-lis a million times more than you'll ever see the flag of Canada. They've always had that mindset, and I'm not saying that to be disparaging to them. It's only in the last few months that in Alberta we finally start to see the Alberta flag. We have never been loyal to our own province. You know, the problem with Albertans, no matter how bad we pay taxes, we pay equalization payments, no matter what we're hit with, what do? As Albertans, we go, oh well, let's just work harder. And that is so typical of an abusive relationship. And you know, in an abusive relationship, there's only 2 ways out of it. You either move out or you die. And let's face it, this province is slowly dying because this country is slowly dying. We look in the last 10 years how our GDP is the lowest of the G7. Our unemployment rate is the highest, pretty much, second highest of the G7. You know, if that group were to be built right now, we probably wouldn't qualify to be in it. We pick battles with our biggest neighbor, whether you like the administration down there or not. The fact remains that 88.5% of our exports go to the US. And what does our federal government do? Continually fight with them. We have more tariffs and excise taxes, tariffs between provinces than most countries have with other countries. We can't make cheese out here and ship it across the nation because that's all controlled by the Sapota family. We are restricted on every level. As far as our military, do you know that there are more registered real estate agents in the Greater Toronto area by 10,000 than what we have total members in our military? There's 75,000 real estate agents in the Greater Toronto area. We have a military of 65,000. And that's counting the clerks, the cooks, the mechanics, everybody. And yet, the nation south of us, and I do not want to be the 51st state, that's not where I'm headed with this. The nation south of us, 88.5% of our exports has been our big brother, literally protects us from foreign entities like Russia. We insult them. You know, elbows up. We don't need you, US. We're going to go make trade agreements with the EU. Well, you know what? The EU makes everything we make, and they've been doing it for 2,000 years. It doesn't make sense. But when you see all of that, and then you see the polls, not that you can really believe them, right now, Carney is supposedly polling at 66% approval rating. And yet, since he took over when we more or less forced Trudeau to resign, unemployment is higher, inflation is higher, home costs are higher, food costs are higher, taxation is higher. Like, there is not a single sector that has gotten better, but yet for some reason, with the influence of media, he's polling at 66% approval rating. The chances are if an election were to be called, he'd win a majority if he doesn't get it just through by-elections. I don't believe that Alberta can be fixed by fighting this battle internally. We're going to have one opportunity in our lives, one. And that is when that referendum comes on October 19th, for us to send a strong message to everyone that the vast majority of us know that this relationship is no longer working. This opportunity will never come again in our lifetimes. Never. Because with the rate of immigration, with the rate of media influence, with Bill C-8 and C-9, where now in Ontario, in Quebec, people are knocking on are knocking on people's doors, talking to them about posts they've made about Carney, I mean, the UK arrested 12,000 people in 2025 for social media posts that they didn't agree with. Well, that's here now. It's not coming. It's here with Bill C8 and C9. We're in a situation that we will never, ever get to escape from without violence. You can vote in communism, but you got to shoot your way out of it. And that's basically what we've done here. We have foreign entities on our soil. We have Chinese military training here. We have Chinese police stations here. We've lost what Canada is. I've lived in many, many different places. And every place I ever went to, I respected it because it was someone's home. And there are great things all over the world. But you know what? My entire life, I was so proud of Canada. So thrilled to talk about Canada, to come home to Canada. But when Trudeau won his second election, it broke my heart. I couldn't believe that we can continue down this path of self-destruction. It hurts me to say that it honestly kind of upsets me to see a Canadian flag right now because it isn't what I was born into. It isn't what I was raised into, and it isn't what my children deserve. I was in Calgary, and my daughter and son-in-law are looking for a home, selling their condo that they own. You know, they're looking at homes that are 50 years old that are $700,000. How are you going to do that? What future is there for our children? What future for our grandchildren? And it's not getting better. It's getting worse. We have gone over the Canada has gone over the fulcrum point. I believe it's at a point of no return. The only hope that we have is for us to voice our one chance of freedom, and that's in October. We have to do it. I look forward to talking further on this with questions, but now I have the privilege of introducing Mr. Scott, the man that we have all really come to hear and see. Chris, are you coming? Or are you just too many pierogies? I tried to keep it at 10 minutes. He's used to me talking for 25. So I brought my timer up today, and I ended really close to 10 minutes. Thank you so much, Chris, for all you do, and this is yours.
Do I get your extra 25 seconds?
You got it. You take all the time you want.
Well, good evening, and thank you, everybody, for coming. Yes, I did have too many pierogies. We're doing a pierogi dinner a week, so I feel like I'm maybe turning into a pierogi, but that's another discussion. So you've heard, and you probably know, you probably felt a lot of the issues, the problems, you know, the things that you don't like about the situation Alberta's in, right? We hear about it all the time. We talk about the problems all the time. To the point that sometimes we forget to think about the opportunity. You know, out of all the things that Alberta has gone through since its legislation into existence in 1905, what are the opportunities that we have right now? You know, some people, like my friend Danielle, she says that we have an opportunity to beg the federal government to give us some scraps. Little by little, we'll get a little more, a little more. My good friend Jason, Kenny, he seems to think that that's just what Alberta has to put up with. You know, we just have to continue to be a colony of Confederation and hope that we get some more crumbs and make these incremental changes and just be okay with that because, why? Because Canada, you know? But because of all these things, there's a lot of people who have realized that, hey, there's something wrong and we really need to stop this. Someone else is driving this car, we don't like where it's going, and we need to take control. We need to take the wheel. So all of a sudden, because so many people are paying attention, so many people want to get involved and they're motivated, we end up with an opportunity. And the opportunity is this fall, October 19th, I think, we're going to have a referendum on the future of Alberta. And the referendum question is going to be something along the lines of, may not be just like this, but it'll be along the lines of, do you agree that the province of, or Alberta should cease to be a province of Canada and become an independent state? And state means nation, not a united state. So that's a real opportunity we have. That's a really important question. That's a very heavy question. Probably one of the most important questions that you're going to answer as an Albertan in your lifetime. And knowing that, if we have such an important question to answer, we need to make sure that we have the information so we can answer that question correctly, to the best of our ability, to the betterment of our families and their families and so on and so forth. So as I thought about this a few months ago, it occurred to me that we need to start having some conversations, like real conversations, not just people going up and telling you why they think we need to do this, but more like, sharing our perspective, our opinion on what we want to see for Alberta, giving our reasons why, and then offering you folks a chance to discuss that with us. And specifically, I'm hoping that we get more people to come to these dinners, lured in with pierogies, that have objections or concerns or fears about an independent Alberta that we can talk about. That's really important. And we don't really see a lot of that. What we're seeing a lot of is municipalities declining to rent their taxpayer-funded facilities to groups that want to talk about Alberta's future. We're seeing people cursing and swearing and having emotional outbursts at those who are participating in the democratic process. We actually see more people trying to cancel the conversation, and what I mean is the people who disagree with my view of an independent Alberta. We see more of those people trying to cancel the conversation or threaten the people having the conversations or encouraging others to cancel those people than we do actual discussions. And I guess I'm not really super surprised because people are largely emotionally driven, right? We have a tendency to think with this thing instead of this thing. And I'm almost 47 years old, and I've learned some lessons in my life, and the biggest lesson I've learned is that this thing lies to you. It lies to you, it twists the truth, and it makes you see things that aren't necessarily real. This is the thing that you have to pay attention to, your brain. And for those of you that can't see me but are listening, I'm basically saying your heart will deceive you, your emotions get in the way of a logically derived conclusion or action for your life. So we need to start having these discussions, because this opportunity, if you really zoom out and you look at where Alberta's at, you realize that this opportunity we have is a huge blessing. Huge. I've said this at other events, I'll say it again tonight. People across the world, and other parts of the world, have fought wars for hundreds of years and lost millions of lives, entire families wiped out of existence, fighting for the opportunity to self-determine. That is a really heavy truth. There are people that have had to give up everything they have, everything they know, and go to something that is unknown in order to try and be free. And a good example is, my ancestors in Europe and some of yours who just didn't know what was out there, but got on little boats and went across hundreds of miles of ocean. Like, they didn't know where they were going. They just wanted freedom. And they were willing to sacrifice everything, to leave everything behind, all of the comforts behind, to go there and do that so they could self-determine. And we have this luxury of, in a few short months, walking into a room, looking at some ballots, too many ballots, by the way, but that's another conversation. And we get to stand there in private without anybody watching, without our neighbors knowing what we're doing, without our boss or our leaders knowing where our minds are at. And we get to look at this ballot. And the question is going to be, do you want to continue with the status quo, Alberta? Do you want to continue begging for crumbs? Do you want to continue being subject to a federation that you can't influence the outcome of their policy over you? Or do you want to do something that's never been done before? Do you want to move into the unknown with the promise that you can self-determine? Do you want to give up some of the comforts of knowing exactly how much you're going to be taxed, or that your taxes are for sure going to go up? I don't know how comfortable that is. To a place where all of a sudden you have an opportunity to be included in the conversation that has that has an outcome of those things. And you get to do that in private. So if you're I call a closet separatist, you are important on that day. Well, you're important today, but you're important on that day, and your voice, your choice, will influence the outcome of Alberta forever. That's a big deal. And that's why we're doing these events. Some of these events we've done, the first one we did was in Rimbey. And I figured, we'll get about 150 people there. So we bought a bunch of pierogies, a bunch of food, and got ready. And half hour before the doors opened, the place is full. And I'm like, holy good grief, we need to go get some more pierogies. So we madly scrambled and panicked and put more tables out, and we packed almost 300 people in there. Other events, we've had 20 people. And I'm sure we'll have more events with 300. We'll have more events with 20 or maybe even 6 people. It doesn't matter. What matters is these conversations need to happen with everybody who's willing to have them. And in groups like this, we're a smaller group tonight. It becomes we have to become very aware that because we're not filling the rooms, now each of you have a little bit of a burden to carry. That is, you're going to go out into your lives, into your families and your colleagues, your circle of trust and influence, and you're going to have these conversations because they're not all going to happen here. But that's what this is about. It's about having the conversations with people who want to have them, answering the questions, dealing with the objections. I really hope that some of you or all of you are opposed to the idea, and you will tell me why. I would love that tonight. And then once we have this discussion, you can go and you can share what you've learned here tonight and maybe bring somebody to the next one. That's how we win this. That's how this happens. Not as difficult as, Poland, where they had to smuggle pamphlets in fear of really bad punishment from the government, trying to build the solidarity movement and get out from under the iron, or from behind the Iron Curtain. Not like in other countries fleeing that type of thing, where if you were found at a meeting like this, you would just be executed. We just get to have conversations and deal with some unhinged lunatics from time to time that don't know how to separate logic from emotion, but such is life. So I'm going to give up the rest of my time, and I'm going to use the little bit of time we're saving and give more time to you folks to ask questions and make comments and things like that. And because we're a smaller group today, I think that everyone should get to answer or ask a question or make a comment. Before we do that, I'm just going to invite you to go, please grab a to-go pierogies because we made way too much. Maybe have a cup of coffee because we made way too much. And stretch your legs a little bit. Maybe say hi to the other speakers. If you have any quick questions about what they spoke about, touch base with them quickly, and then we'll resume in about 5 minutes for a Q&A. And what do we got for time right now? Does anyone got time? 8 o'clock? 8:08. Okay, so tonight we are going, for me, my hard stop is going to be at 8:45. I have to go. I have to cook a pig for tomorrow. So I got to go pick up the pig and get the barbecue put together and get that done tonight and at 4 o'clock in the morning. But I'm sure if there's more questions, the other speakers will stick around for a little longer. So stretch your legs, grab a coffee, grab a to-go pierogies, and we'll get back at it in 5 minutes.
All right, so the Q&A should start soon. I just was moving the cameras just a little bit here. So thanks for tuning in. If you have questions, put them on the chat. I got some questions already lined up already, so I'm just gonna flag them, and people will answer the questions. So if you have questions, just put the exclamation mark next to the question, so I can flag the question, and other people here can answer as well too. So there are just people here are just drinking some coffee, eating some pierogies, all that kind of stuff. So that's gonna start soon. So I just want to see if where are guys watching. If you're in the meantime, I just want to see where you guys are watching from. I see some people from Pinoca. I've seen some people in Calgary, I think, along the line. And thanks for the super chats too. That was very awesome, very helpful. And some people were giving e-transfers, which is very helpful. That's fantastic. Keeps the things up and going here. So thanks for tuning in. And so next events will be in Tofield on Tuesday. Also in Drumheller on Monday. That's with Jason Levine over there. And so that's Monday in Drumheller, Tuesday in Tofield. Maybe another one on Friday and Saturday. I just lined it up on my schedule. And I think at the Whistle Stop they have an event is like the slow roller type of thing. They're stretching from Calgary all the way to the Whistle Stop. I might go there and say I might, because I don't know my schedule, what it looks going to be like. Oh, we got people from Beaumont, the French town. French town. That's funny because Beaumont, it's like one of those towns that is all in French. Like if you go in Beaumont, like the main streets in downtown, they said street and also says road, which is kind of funny. The other town that's similar to that, yeah, and the other guys that are like or have the same other towns that are set up that way is I think Morinville set up the same way. So they're going to ask questions here. You don't see the chairs, but they're lining up right now. You probably see on the upper left corner of the screen. You can see all the cameras. You can't see any people on on the cameras because they are all on the other side, and I don't have access. Maybe I can point the camera. I don't know if that's going to fall. Anyways. So I'm going to switch the cameras to the Q&A section there. And as I mentioned, if you have questions, just put the exclamation mark like this next to the question, and I will release that, and I will flag the questions there. So thanks for your time and your patience. So I'm going to switch the cameras here. And I'm going to SDFU. All right. Poliver said on Joe Rogan, Alberta would never separate. Yeah, I mean, I remember one. I mean, the Conservative Party is so weird because one of the problems that the Conservative Party had in past tense, I mean, and still they do to some extent now, is that their communications team absolutely sucks. And from my understanding, there were some directives that goes from the top down, which kind of prevented podcasters or alternative media to go to their events. So basically, when I was during the federal election, I tried to live stream events from events from the CPC, and they basically said, no, you're not authorized, you're not a recognized media, we can't allow you to happen to live stream or anything. So, and that happened. That's what happened with this is a directive from top to the bottom. That's kind of what happened. And if you go to their website, it's like their communication strategy for the CPC in the last election was absolutely bad. That's bad. So they shoot themselves on the foot, and they have some weird people working there as well too. Yeah, PP, small PP as they call him. So it's actually so. And the fact that this guy was essentially telling that Alberta independence it's a trivial thing. I mean, that's the reason why I think Peter Poliver right now is kind of the reason why we have an independence movement here in Alberta, because people are just pissed off about it, right? Yeah, so I have some questions here. I'm going to try to answer the questions, although I'm not the guy who's going to answer them, but I can give you some sort of an answer given all the information. I'm told Carney made CPP a federal asset. Is this true? Do you know? Yes, I've heard a lot that the federal government actually took the CPP money and burned it into an asset. I'm gonna relay that question to be sure, but I think that's true. But they will ask the question. But expect that, and also that comes to the point of the Alberta with the Alberta pension plan as well too. So, but I'm gonna relay the questions to them anyways. Okay. Another question: how far is the Quebec sovereignty movement along? All we hear in the news is Alberta. I will ask the question to Ben, but I lived there in Quebec for 20 years, long enough. My assessment of the independence movement there, if you look at the Quebec news, they've all been hijacked by Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and all those guys, the leftists, communists, because the universities actually hijacked the independence movement, the PQ. The base of the PQ are essentially radical Marxists. That being said, the independence movement, what I've seen from people that still live there, is losing ground because of that. Now, is that going to deflate? My assessment is that don't take Alberta, the Quebec separation, as a catalyst for the Alberta one. What I mean by that is that it's not because Quebec is separating that Alberta will separate. They're completely different perspectives and different ways of thinking. So, what you need to understand, the way you need to look at this is it's not because Quebec is separating that Alberta will, because the political aspect in that side of the country is completely different from here. So I personally don't count, and I don't think that Quebec's going to separate. So I don't expect that Quebec will separate. That's personally speaking. We're going to relay the questions to them anyways. But I personally don't believe that Quebec will separate anytime soon because of demography and political interventions, and the political mindset in Quebec is completely different. And if you live in Quebec long enough, you will understand that Quebec are basically living in a completely hermetic system. Language-wise, they have the language divide. They have the French over there. If you are listening to the mainstream media, it's all in French, and unless people translate it into French, they're not going to listen. And most of the media that's been pushed by the Laurentian elite is in French. So, and I'll give you an example, personal example. CBC in particular, they do give the news in French and English, but the version in French is completely opposite to the version in English. I've seen it countless times, so especially in federal election. So in regards to what's going to happen with the independence, I personally don't believe it's going to happen over there, but that is not a reason for Albertans not push independence. But I'm gonna relay the question to them anyways, but I'm gonna give you my assessment from that. Okay, any other questions? Other questions here. Thanks, Fade on Canada. How can I ask Ben if he's been following Mr. Plamondon about his push for Quebec sovereignty, and how is sovereignty strengthened? That's what I just said. But I'm gonna, as I mentioned, I'm just gonna relay the questions to them anyways. It's just that the questions that I've seen there, I've hearing all the time, and just trying to triage all of them. So, Donald Trump is Jesus Christ. I don't know, man. Thanks, Max. I was only interested or two totally promises with different culture. Yes, absolutely. And the thing is that I know personally people who moved from Quebec, right? Oh, they're gonna start soon. Okay, I just hear them on the back. So they're lining up in the back here. Because the thing is that the camera is pointing to the Quonset, but all the people are in the hall and my camera has complete no sight on that area. Because I use 3 cameras, one for the stage one, which is my laptop camera, and the other that is Canon, what you see on the bottom. Okay, we're gonna start soon. I'm just gonna switch the cameras. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to send some super chats. That was very awesome for you guys there. All right, just gonna switch the cameras there. There we go. Okay, it's off. Oh, that's the feedback I'm hearing. Is it that cool? Do the sound? I have to do the sound in between. That's awesome. For those of you who are more or less aware, I basically have my own system. I'm using my own mixer. That's why. Oh, my glasses! Forgot my glasses. Thanks. Yeah, stupid carbon tax. And it's going up on April the 1st just to mess around with people, right? All right, so I'm going to mute. Hello. So using 4 and 3. All right, they're using microphone 3 and 4 again. So just don't forget, guys, when you're guys ready for the questions from the online audience, just let me know, okay?
Max, can you turn our mics on?
I do.
Test.
Yep.
Test.
Mine is in.
We need red on too.
Red one. Red rum. Red rum. Okay, I think we're ready to start the Q&A portion.
There we go. If you have a question, please come and line up right here. Or actually, there's enough blowing up with the crowd, just walk to them tonight.
Just raise your hand and I'll talk.
Normally we have to have somebody make a line up, but tonight it's not far for him to go.
And if there's nothing from the crowd yet, Max will take the online questions.
Yeah, we got one here.
Yeah, I got a question, Chris. We talked to you a little bit back here. A lot of people ask me, what's the new Alberta going to look like? And actually, you gave me a good answer. So it's about people got on a boat and they didn't know where they were going, and yet, for freedom. So maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
So that's a great question, and we hear this a lot. The question is, what is the new Alberta going to look like? And sometimes the question is in the form of, what's the money going to look like? And I'm like, well, my face will be on all of the bills, but that's another story. What's our military going to look like? What's our monetary policy going to be? And then I'm like, geez, I'm a waitress, and these people are asking me what our monetary policy is going to be like in the new nation. But I answer anyway. Tips, yeah. Tips won't be taxed. Here's the reality of it. I don't know. I know what I want to see. I have my opinions as to what I want the new nation of Alberta to be. Free, prosperous, encouraging business, rewarding hard work, those types of things, preventing corruption. But the reality is, I can only accomplish those things if I get involved and I bring enough people with me, more than the opponents, and then we participate in democracy and we win. So here's a quick breakdown. Referendum in October, successful referendum, triggers negotiations with the federal government. Negotiations inevitably fail. Declaration of Independence. Then we have to write a new constitution, and that's really the opportunity. That's going to lay the groundwork and the foundation for what the nation of Alberta will look like. It's going to be the constitution. In that, we have things like what type of government we're going to have. We have constitutional enshrinements that prevent corruption. Maybe we enshrine Doge in there somehow. All of those types of things. How our money is going to work, how our military is going to work, all in that foundational document. Then we have elections, and we elect a government. And people are going to campaign. They're going to say, I want you to vote for me as president because I want the new nation of Alberta to have only pink tanks in the military. And you'll be like, well, don't really care about that, so we're going to vote for the other guy, right? We vote for who wants to make the laws that we want to see happen. So if everyone's involved and the good people of Alberta stay engaged with the process, together we're going to build something amazing that's never been done before. Right now, we can't do that. We can to some extent in a provincial election, but at the end of the day, we're still under the thumb of Ottawa, and we can't change that. The opportunity is, for the first time in Alberta's history, Albertans will be able to self-determine and chart their own course forward. That's something we can't do now. So I can't tell you what the money's going to look like. I can't tell you how the military is going to be structured, but I can tell you that we'll be able to decide that for the first time.
I would just add to that too. It's important to really emphasize that Constitution is decided on and ratified by Albertans. So if you can picture that day, referendum day will be a momentous occasion, and I get goosebumpy and tears in my eyes thinking about referendum day. But what about Alberta Constitution Day, when we actually go and ratify our new constitution for sovereign Alberta? That's going to be ratified by Albertans. As far as the economic part, there's been a lot of work done on the economics of it because we know how much we overpay to the federal government. We know the services that we get back with the tax dollars that we've paid to the federal government, so we can take ownership of that in a new sovereign Alberta. And one of the documents I guess I would recommend you go read is The Value of Freedom. It's a fully costed fiscal document on the merits and the costs of running a sovereign Alberta, what those numbers could look like. And in that, it also accounts for our military, our border defense, our police, our schooling, all of the components of it, fully costed fiscal document. And it's at albertaprosperity.com. So that's one resource you can look at.
And along that too, talking exactly about what you said, Tanya, about us paying the federal government, whether it's through federal income tax, equalization payments, and then what we get back is a fraction of that. But not only that, oftentimes there's caveats attached to it. There was Trudeau offered a big infrastructure package to just last year, before Carney came in, the city of Calgary for housing. But then attached to that were a bunch of requirements. which basically eliminated what's called R1 zoning, which is residential zoning, where you could have your house, your driveway, your front yard, your little backyard, your garage, because he wanted it all to go to condos and apartments. So we would be out from under the thumb of that. You know, we get attacked all the time saying, oh, this is insane. Like, how are you going to set up a country? How are you going to do this? How are you going to have passports? How are you going to have military? All the things we just talked about. But, you know, our GDP, as Alberta is an independent nation, would right now rank us about 8th in the world. You can look at countries like Costa Rica. They have their own money. They have their own passports. They're a recognized nation. They do well. And they've got about the same population as us, I think it's just over 5 million, and they are less than 10% the land mass of us, and about 10% the natural resources of us. So this can be done. And to speak to exactly what you were saying, Chris, you know, we're at a point in history now where we can look as templates of all the different constitutions of all the different countries, and we can pick out the best of those and start with an absolutely amazing clean slate that is ratified by Albertans for Albertans. If we do not do this at this point in time in history, we will, and I guarantee you, we will never have this opportunity again. It will be gone forever. We as Albertans, as I mentioned earlier, you know, we're often cursed with the fact that we just think we can always make it better by working harder. Well, this isn't the case here. There are no do-overs. This is a once in a multi-generational lifetime opportunity to write our own future.
That's quite the opportunity.
Yeah, and I really think that it comes down to you and me. Because I think gone are the days where we can sit back and vote once every 4 years and then complain about who got in. Yeah. We have to get out. You and I can be part of writing, should be, will be a part of writing this. It's like all them old Louis L'Amour books I used to read. Well, I still read them. But there are these guys out in the middle of nowhere that has no law. And they finally got sick and tired of the bandits running things. They chose someone to be a marshal. Then they chose what to do. Then they all got together and worked on what the government should look like in this town. Same thing. We're
tired of the bandits.
Yeah, but we're like the word escapes me. We're frontiers. This has never been done before by us, but are you up to it? Yeah.
Hi there. Many Albertans know already that we're a prosperous province. They know that we'll be fine if we choose to walk our own path, but they're very afraid of what happens to the rest of the country because that's where their family lives, that's where they came from. They're very afraid that how would you address that?
I'd love to answer that for you, Bonnie. We were at a meeting up in Hines Fairview, and there was a gentleman actually in the crowd that stood up, and I think he had the perfect answer for that because another gentleman stood up and said, I've got property now in Alberta because I see the opportunity here, but I'm from Manitoba. I have property and business there and relatives, and when I go back to Manitoba, everybody's like, what about us? What about us? If Alberta leaves, what about us? And a gentleman in the crowd stood up and goes, well, it's like this. If you're on a ship and it's sinking, if you're on a boat and it's sinking, what is the first thing you do? You put on your life jacket. And that's what Alberta is doing here. We're putting on our life jacket so we can survive. 2 drowning people is no good. This is us. This is Alberta putting on, our life jackets, or if we're in that plane, we're putting on that oxygen mask, because we can't help anybody if we go down with the ship. And let me tell you, Canada is a sinking ship. It is undeniable. I don't care what you read in the media or what you see on TV. If you look at the actual facts, Canada's a sinking ship. So, I have long said that this is the best thing for all of Canada if Alberta separates, Because number one, it's going to preserve us. Number two, it's going to teach a lesson to the rest of Canada. We have been name-called, we've been put down. When Carney got in, he mentioned 10 mega projects, not one landed in Alberta. Nothing comes to Alberta. This is going to be one of those tough love things for the rest of Canada to realize what's been going on and that they can't survive with the current pattern they have, especially when Alberta is gone. It's going to be beneficial for the rest of Canada. It's like when you have that child that just never listens to you, sometimes you got to do tough love. And I think Canada, the rest of Canada, needs a tough love lesson by losing Alberta and facing what reality is. It'll make them better for it.
Just that I would add that I agree wholeheartedly. It would be just the initiative of the rest of the provinces need to develop their own resources, 100%.
Yeah, exactly, Bonnie. Like Alberta, we do subsidize other provinces, and part of that subsidy is enabling them to pursue woke ideologies, or let's just say anti-human ideologies that are not conducive to freedom and prosperity, right? Is it prosperous to lock your natural resources in the ground because Al Gore says the world's going to be on fire by 2016? No, it's not. You know, we have to stop allowing other provinces to ignore the benefits afforded to them through, for example, Alberta's energy and the great things that have been accomplished and the comforts and the conveniences and the increase in quality of life and all of these things. Because some nut job in another country tells them to. So Alberta becoming independent is likely the only thing that will save the rest of Canada from continuing down that path. And it's like when, this will never happen, but just imagine that the government locked all of the businesses down and wouldn't let them operate and said that you had to keep your doors closed because somebody might get sick. And then imagine they just did that for months and months and months, and then it was into a year, and then they told you, we're never going to tell you when you can reopen because we just don't know. Now imagine one of those businesses just decided to say, no, this is wrong enough. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to stand up and I'm going to push back against this. Well, that's a scary thing to do. It's just like a province standing up and saying, no, we're not going to do this. But when that one person does that, that courage is contagious. And people start to realize we don't have to live this way. So this is an opportunity not just for Alberta, but for all of the other provinces to finally get off this path of anti-humanism that we've been on for decades in Canada.
What I find very encouraging with what's happening in our province right now is that I believe when I see Premier Smith decisions, even in the past 2 weeks alone, I believe that she's taking path to assert sovereignty. And the problem of this province is that we never taken path to assert sovereignty. We don't collect our own taxes. Worse than that, I will something that I'm absolutely furious about. We're collecting our royalties every Friday afternoon. With the price of oil last week, it was probably $1 billion in the week that we collected. Usually it's averaged $500 million a week that we collected. And when we collect these royalties, they are deposited in Toronto at the CIBC. When we have our own bank, ATB, you know that we sent to Toronto, the province of Alberta, close to $1.2 billion a year just in banking fees. That's $1.2 billion a year that goes to hockey clubs, baseball clubs, to other stuff in Toronto and not here. When we keep the money in this province, that pays for the local association. That pays because we keep our workers here. I mean, I helped a lady from Cochrane. Her husband passed away, and I helped her with the estate. And we had an appointment at the RBC at 3:30 in the afternoon to solve some paperwork. And 10 minutes in the meeting, the guy said, well, I'm sorry, I cannot do anything because the RBC estate department is in Toronto and they close at 5. So come back tomorrow at 10. I was really, really insulted. Like, we're not intelligent enough to control our own stuff here? Like that in Quebec would never fly. So this is what we need to start. And by the way, to collect the royalties, it's what is needed? It's needed every minister to pick up their phone, call their deputy minister, say, you're shutting down all bank accounts in federally registered financial institution, and you send everything to ATB or spread it toward the 13 credit unions we have under the province. In Quebec, there's a credit union named Desjardins. Desjardins was founded in 1900, because banks would not give loan to French people in Quebec. So they started their own stuff. They're starting their co-op, their credit union. Now Desjardins controls over 600 billion of assets. 7.8 million Quebecers out of the 9 million has an account at Desjardins. So tomorrow morning, they flip the switch, say no more Canadian dollar. Quebec wouldn't be affected a single time, because Desjardins could decide to take all the bank accounts and say, okay, starting now, the dollar you have there in the Canadian dollar is now Desjardins dollar. And because everybody's member, everybody could keep on, put gas in their car, buy their grocery, nothing would change, nothing would move. So, but here, no, here we have TD, RBC, we send everything to Toronto, we help Toronto, we don't collect our taxes. After that, we cry because the feds don't send us back the money. If we collect our taxes, we have something to negotiate to Ottawa. It goes reverse way. No, I was criticizing some decision on health with Adrienne Lagrange during a dinner. I was talking to her about some stuff, and said, well, if we do that, we're going to miss what the federal government has to give. Well, do you know that Quebec have introduced private health care? Do you know that there's doctors here in Red Deer that send their patients, they rent surgery, they rent operation room in Quebec to give surgery to Alberta patients in Quebec? Because Quebec say, middle finger to Ottawa, so we want private care in this province, and we're going to do it. And you know what? According to our constitution, health care is provincial. So if we have somebody in jail because of coups, justice is provincial. Quebec have his own civil code. Quebec don't use common law for civil code. They have the Napoleon Code from 1808. This is how they rule all the civil law, because they can. Why don't we have our own civil code? Why is our court is called King's Court or King's Bench? In Quebec, it's called Superior Court of Quebec. Why do we have provincial park? In Quebec, there are national park. 10% of our park here are owned by the federal under like Banff and all that. It's 10% of the territory. You know how much federal park Ottawa control in Quebec? 0.001% of territory. One national park in the entire province, Forillon, the size of El Calan National Park. That's the only thing they control. All the rest is provincial. Why do we call it Crown land? In Quebec, it's all provincial land. We don't know what Crown land is. The Crown is not there. It's been we never saw the King there. No? So we have to start doing stuff like that, changing our language, stopping being subservient, being good subject of the king, and act like it, and then control our money. The day we keep in Quebec, you do your provincial tax or federal tax. In 1998, when the Supreme Court came back with the judgment on the question, on the referendum, the next day, what Quebec did, they created a secretary, 600 bureaucrats sitting in Gatineau on the other side of the bridge, and their job daily is to cross the bridge in Ottawa and challenge all federal bureaucrats for every penny that they receive. So, and if Ottawa don't give them for every service that they're supposed to give, if Ottawa don't give enough for that service, they ask the money back. So Quebec account for every penny that they pay to the federal government through the, because when you're in Quebec, you fill a provincial tax report and a federal one. And the federal one, every penny that is paid there comes back in service to Quebec. And when the feds don't do a good job, do you know what they do? They say, okay, with like EI, employment insurance, it's all controlled by Quebec. Because they say, you won't come and tell us where we need that money. Give us the money, we'll take care of it. And they do that everywhere. So tomorrow, Quebec vote for independence. What will change? Zero. Niet. Nothing. They can control all of their stuff, including monetary. You know what that no Quebecer knows anything about equalization? 99.9% of the Quebecers don't know what equalization is. They don't know that they received 13.9 billion. They have no clue. In 95, when we did the referendum, we knew that we were receiving more than the feds of what we were paying. So what we've done, we switched the narrative. Instead of saying that, let's become independent, we'll keep more money. No. Let's become independent, and we'll remove the fiscal imbalance. What is fiscal imbalance is what I just said, is that I receive less service than what I pay for. That's fiscal imbalance. And this is the criteria of Quebec to calculate the relationship with the Fed. So all that is constitutional. All that can be done. No referendum, no change in the law, no change in the Constitution, nothing. All that is legislative assembly in Edmonton with a majority government that has the courage to implement all that, and that's it. So anyway, that's my rant for that. As for the referendum, I will tell you what, I believe this is for sure a one in a lifetime occasion to start shaking this up. I will tell you what, if ever it doesn't go through, it's way better, it's way easier to dismantle a machine from the inside than trying to shoot it from the outside.
Okay, so my question is, how do you respond to people that ask or claim that Alberta will have to take their share of Canada's debt when they leave? I don't know how to answer that. Will we?
Well, it's a negotiation thing, right? The way I answer it is I say, okay, let's role play, and I'll pretend that I'm a negotiator. I'm going to start by saying Alberta has contributed net $600 billion to Confederation, for which they haven't received a penny back or a service back. And if you account for inflation, it's like 1.2 to 1.5 trillion or something like that. What's the national debt? 1.3 trillion. We've paid our share. Not only that, but has anyone in this room ever felt that they are able to influence the way the federal government spends money? No. Not only are we a huge net contributor, we don't have the representation that we're taxed on. So my starting point, okay, federal government, I understand you have this massive federal debt, national debt that you have incurred. Alberta has contributed almost that much, so we're going to start at zero. That's my opinion.
And there will be a negotiation on many things. Like you mentioned about the national parks, Alberta's like 661,000 square kilometers. I think national or federal parks are 65,481 square kilometers. So there'll be a negotiation about that. There'll be a negotiation about the military. One of the things that's a real ace in our pocket is I used to live up there. I was on the base all the time because I worked for Lafarge, so I had a restricted area pass for everything. It's Cold Lake, 4-wing, and there's Clark, Cold Lake Air Weapons Range, or they call it Primrose, and that is the most sought after piece of military property in the world because it most closely simulates the terrain of Russia, and there is no hard ceiling. So they can fly as low as they want. And they conduct games up there. It's called Maple Flag, and it's from May 1st till June 15th. And all the NATO nations go with all their Top Gun pilots, and they train up there for 6 weeks. Well, that air weapons range, that's Alberta province property that's leased to the National Department of Defense. So the fact of it is, after World War II and the Cold War started, it was the U.S. military that built that entire base up there. That is a gem. Do you think that we're not going to have a huge bunch of backing from our neighbors to the south to have Alberta as a key place to be friends with? Because A, they've got the weapons range in Cold Lake. B, the administration currently in the U.S. is very concerned about the Chinese element in the world globally, and right now we have boots on the ground here and have had them for years that they're concerned about. So having Alberta is just absolutely strategic. We are going to have a lot of support and a lot of backing. And there was some narrative that, it was traitorous, that some people went down and talked to the Trump administration regarding this independence. Well, Quebec did that. In 95, they went down and met with the U.S. because they realized this is a pretty big trading partner with hydroelectric and everything like that.
Our trading partner, 88.5% of our exports go to the U.S. How disingenuous would it be if we weren't talking to them? Imagine if this vote went through. It will. Imagine when this vote goes through in October, and then all of a sudden the administration goes down there, well, we don't really want to deal with you, we want to deal with Canada. Like, what would have we done to ourselves? That would be just the worst case scenario possible. So going and talking to them, finding out if they support us, finding out their advice, and they do. They have really, they're looking at Alberta as the beacon of saving Canada, because Canada's a lost nation right now. Gentleman at the back.
Can you hear me? There we go. If this goes forward, this vote goes forward, and we do get to that election, you know, how are we, you know, this people like us, going to get into the heads of, I call them idiots, that come home, eat their supper, turn on the TV, and watch CBC? You know what I mean? Like, it's their CBC, which is liberal, is going to try everything they can to stop this. And we've got to be prepared to do something to get into the cities and turn their heads our way.
Yeah, okay, I understand. The question is, how do we reach the people in the cities? Do you know who the best salesman for Alberta independence is for city people? Mark Carney. Do you know they're paying for gas in the cities right now? Do you know what they're paying for utilities and taxes and all these things? It is unfriggin' real, the amount of money that people are hemorrhaging because of overtaxation. So that's one part. I do want to point out that there is a group of people that we will never reach. The ones that have these emotional biases that are preventing them from seeing the facts, we're not going to reach those people. We just won't. But we will reach some. And I said it earlier, and this is the way we're going to do it. We're going to have these discussions. We go to the cities as well. We go to rural towns of 200. We go to cities of 800,000. And then we have conversations with people just like you, and they ask questions, and they learn something, and then when they go home, they take those conversations to their circles. That's how it's done. But it's not like, you know, people have in rural Alberta, people have this common misconception that because we're there, it means we're not going to the cities. Well, we certainly are. It's just not on CBC, so they don't know about it. But that's why it becomes so important that everybody's involved. And you take that away from this, that you have a responsibility to advocate for the change that you want to see, which is an independent Alberta, and you have to take that to your friends in the city or rural or wherever.
Somehow we got to get into their heads.
Well, I wouldn't want to be in some of their heads, but...
School teachers, yeah.
Sorry, I'll be quick. Yeah, like exactly what Chris said. This falls upon each one of us. Do you remember back in, 2015 when the NDP got in? Do you know one of the biggest reasons why they won a majority? It's because it was a Tuesday, the Flames were in a playoff game, and so many people didn't bother to go vote. They went either to the stadium and watched the game, or they sat at home and watched the game, or went with their friends to the pub and watched the game. And 15 ridings went NDP by just handfuls of votes, because most of the people watching the Flames in playoff hockey were kind of conservatives because they loved their hockey, whereas the NDP crowd didn't really care about hockey. They were motivated to get out. Sitting at home and being apathetic and not getting out and not talking to people and not having those and they can be difficult. You got to be careful with these conversations, but that's what will cost us. But you know, you can just think of one or two things, and this is what I always say when people attack me about Alberta wanting to leave. I say, can you name for me one unique, specific thing that Canada has done for Alberta. I don't mean all the provinces and territories. I just mean Canada. Name me one thing. And nobody ever has. And then I say to them, says, well, you know, I can name about 700 billion things that Alberta has done for the rest of Canada with our equalization payments, which have built hospitals, schools, roads, airports. So what is the benefit of Canada continuing in that relationship? It can be just as simple as that. Pick one or two things. And I thought what you said about the pension plan, I mean, we've overpaid into the pension plan $400 billion. Imagine if we had that back. Look at the ratios. What you said, Ben, is just should be so eye-opening to all of us. They go, oh, we can't have our own pension plan. Look what it's done for Quebec. Like 3 or 4 times the value per person with their pension plan, and we'd be even more.
Yeah, and I'll be something, as Zane was mentioning, the city, something very important is to get the people out. Again, when the NDP came in power, they overall, there's only 24% of the voters that voted for them, and they got majority with 24% of the voters, just the way our system is built. So I believe the one other thing for the city that's super important is to have meetings like that, to have meetings where we can discuss, because people from the city are as well. No, they're not all dumb. As for CBC, the latest numbers came out because there is budget as well, and I believe the audience right now, the national is down to 500,000 listeners across the country. So I believe that they are losing the game on that front, and this is why we need as well for the city, we need to target and try to get into social media and their own echo chambers through podcasts or other stuff. I don't know yet what will be a strategy, but we definitely need to move there as well.
Another thing that I'd like to do to try and get the conversation happening in the cities is, have any of you seen any kind of higher profile people holding public events opposed to Alberta independence? I've seen them. Has anyone else seen them? There are some people who are publicly opposed, and they have the media's ear. They're always in the newspaper, whatever, to Alberta independence. And people in groups like ours have reached out to them to say, hey, we understand your view is different than ours. Let's have a public debate in an open forum so we can talk about these things. Do you know how many events like that have been booked? 0. None. They won't even debate us. I'm nobody. I'm a 46-year-old average Albertan with barely a college education, and they won't debate me on any of these things publicly, which is strange. But I would think if they're advocating for a position on a question this important, that they would be willing to have the public discourse. If you're not willing to, that tells me that you know that your opinion can't be, your opinion doesn't have a foundation that can be debated or supported. So I would love to see leaders from both sides of the conversation getting in front of people in the cities, rural, wherever, and having the conversation openly. And if any of you know any of those people, maybe put the bug in their ear.
Thank you. This question is for Ben. I'm not really sure how to word this, but I really like what you're saying. So who would implement these things like the CPP and all that stuff? Because we've tried, but we don't do it. Like, well, we don't know how to do it. Like, is it up to Danielle Smith?
Oh, she knows how to do it.
No, I know, but we've tried, we've asked, we've wanted our own police, our own CPP, our own this, our own everything, but.
Well, we never tried that.
How do we do it?
That's the thing. I don't have a clear answer for that, because each time I think that, here's somebody that has the grit to do that, it just collapse on the main issues. I mean, I was at the UCP AGM online in 2020 And we voted as members there for provincial police, for the pension, all that. I couldn't comprehend that 6 years later, a political party, which is a private club, this is how it's designed in our systems. The Westminster system call for private clubs to reach to the population, to get the most vote, to implement what their private club wants to implement, but not in Alberta. And I believe the problem is that this province has been conservative for so long that, and often like majority like we had with Lougheed. Peter Lougheed got a majority once there was something like 3 people at the opposition. Like you almost have to ask MLAs to act as opposition, so much there was no opposition. So because of that, it developed a culture under the dome. We call that the dome effect in Edmonton. So under the dome of that legislature, it creates a culture where, I have to govern for all Albertans. Well, that's not true. You've been elected to govern for your private club first, and to implement what your private club wants to do, and then after that, look if there's something else for the others. There's something for the others. And the NDP don't shame about when they got in power. They did what the NDP wanted to do, and when the Conservative got in power, they do what they govern for all Albertans, including Premier Smith, which I respect. I campaigned for her and all that, but on that, and I believe that she's very timid on what she can do, and more in that, even more that she's implementing some rules that prevent her to move. Like that referendum at non-question, this is ridiculous. What in the world are you doing? Confusing people, have 9 questions, 9 ballots, and then it's absolutely, it's the most ridiculous thing I ever saw. So I believe that a lot of stuff are done to govern for all and to remain centrist with window dressing for the right wing and centrist for the left. And I don't believe this is a good leadership, personally. So I believe that what needs to happen, and this is why I pray for that referendum to happen, I believe it needs like a shock, like when somebody has a heart attack, you need so we need that shock to wake up the system, wake up the politician, and give them the courage to take decisions that are executive, that are bold, and so we have to repeal Bill 2 that force us to have a referendum on the Alberta pension plan. And by the way, amongst the 9 questions, I don't know why this one is not there. So anyway, so all that to say that these are my difference with the government in power. I believe that October, the result of October will give us, and I will push a bit further. After October 19, on October 26, there's a Quebec election. And October 26 Quebec election, 80% of chance the PQ will come back in power. The PQ in power, in their program, and the PQ, when they won in 1994, they won across the province by 20,000 votes, 50-50 Liberal PQ and 7% us, the IDQ. But they won by 20,000 votes, and in their program it says that they will do a referendum within year 1. That's the point 1 of their program. You know what Parizeau did with 20,000 vote majority? He did a referendum because this is what his private club wants, and when you're elected in the Westminster system, you are elected by your private club to represent your private club first, people after, and protect the king. So that's how it's built. So again, I believe that my heart is that whatever result on October 19 is that we can create an alliance with Quebec, whether it's yes or no. We create an alliance with Quebec on October 26, a week later, with the new independentist movement in Quebec, now majority probably in Quebec, and then we both agree on building something for a new Canada or each country or whatever for our election is in October 2027, and I would love to see that election being a referendal election. So to have like 3 questions, like NDP, UCP, and whatever the deal we've negotiated in the past year. So that's my dream of moving forward with that question.
Because we've even tried to get private health care, but the other people scared everybody to death, and it just got lost.
Well, again, you just do it I don't know. There's not that culture here just to do it. No, like people should most people, I don't know what to say to that, but I believe that referendum is the occasion that we need to shake the system, and if it's yes, we need to get in a negotiation, and I believe that if it's yes, in that negotiation we grab Quebec with us, and we say, here, let's negotiate something on each part. That Quebec will love that with the PQ power, and if it's no, we grab Quebec with us. And say, you know what, let's negotiate something to get rid of these clowns there. Yeah, anyway. And by the way, about the country going woke, I don't really care. I'm the only one out west. But you cannot believe how much I don't care how Quebec may be as communist and woke as they want. They're 4,000 kilometers away. It doesn't affect my life, despite my mom, my dad, my brother, everybody's there. But I'm 4,000 kilometers away. What do I care what they do down there? As long as it not affect what I do here. No? So, yeah.
Can I say something? I saw a little bit on the news one day about the CEO of BlackRock. His total compensation was $1.2 billion here about a month ago. Carney is here, and when he was with Brookfield, I'm going to assume he was in the $20 to $30 million a year, plus bonuses of whatever millions.
350 million last year.
Sorry?
Carney, 355 million he made before becoming prime minister.
So now he's here with a 400,000 job, and so he's not here to help Canada, not one thing. So just so people can think about that.
Well, him as prime minister has been pretty lucrative for Brookfield, it seems. So maybe it's not all bad.
And now he doesn't pay for his private jet anymore.
Do we have questions for the online audience?
I'm sorry I got you late. I was invited out for supper, and my wife, she didn't want to be late. But has anybody read this book here?
I have.
The Case for Confederation by Sheila Gunn Reid.
Fantastic book.
It's all the reasons we should stay in Canada. You see that?
Give it a microphone, please. I just cannot hear what he's saying. Brad, give the microphone. Give it a microphone. I just cannot hear what he's saying.
No, it's okay. The book is A Case for Confederation by my friend Sheila Gunn Reid, and just buy it. You'll love her work. Yes. And I think that must have taken her a long time.
Yeah, it's a very good read. Yeah.
And a short read. You could read that book in one bathroom visit.
Yeah. No. You don't need glasses. Yeah.
You know, just for me. I'm done, I think. We get attacked all the time, like I mentioned. And Gandhi, if you remember him, he led, quite an uprising in India. And he said, when you stand for something, first of all, they're going to ignore you. Second, they're going to mock you. And third, they're going to attack you. And if you stand your ground, number 4 is you win. And really what it takes, and that's why it is so important that we all get out and sign, and we get to everybody to sign that referendum, well, not sign the petition, but to vote in the referendum, because by international law, it really just takes 2 things to be recognized.
I love this.
The will of the people and the backing of 2 nations. We already have the backing of our neighbors to the south. And everybody criticizes us and say we can't get through the Parliament, we can't get through the Senate, we can't get through this, we can't get through the Supreme Court. 2 things in modern law, international law, that can define a nation. It's the will of the people, it's the backing of 2 nations. So it's achievable. It's there.
Max, did you say you had some questions from the online portion?
Yes, I'm going to start the questions here. Question one. I was told that Mark Carney made the CPP a federal asset. Is this true? Do you know? What are your thoughts on that?
So it's not Mark Carney who made the CPP a federal asset. It's under Trudeau. The CPP, when they created the investment fund, I think in 2018, something like that, they started putting the asset of the investment fund of CPP on the balance sheet of the federal government. So it's a bit like if your life insurance seller would put your life insurance on his balance sheet to get some credit. So that's what happened. So yes, it's true, but not the way that people think it's. So the CPP is part of the balance sheet of the government of Canada to maintain credit rating and for borrowing. Yes.
Okay,
but,
so it is.
But the other part of that is they also have the liability on the balance sheet as well. And it's starting to actually look a lot worse.
Yeah.
Interesting. Question number two for Ben Trudeau. How is the Quebec sovereigntist movement along? All we hear is Alberta news and everything. So basically, the question is basically, what are your thoughts on the Quebec separatist independence movement over there, aside from what we hear in the news here in Alberta?
So what, how Quebec sees separation? I just don't get.
No. Okay, so basically, no. So the question is, what are your thoughts, or what is the information you have in regards to the separation movement in Quebec?
Oh yes, well. The separation movement in Quebec always kept, it's been alive all the time. It's been basically what happened after the 95 referendum. They took position to be a bit more aggressive towards Ottawa, to assert their sovereignty, which they've done very effectively, which then they got to the point where in 2026, There are more certain. You know what? Our confederation gave us more right than any states in the United States as a province. So, and Quebec has achieved that level. So now separation in Quebec is almost optional. But what happened right now is that because 54% of Quebecers don't speak English. They don't speak a word of English. They don't read English. They are prisoner of the French culture. Quebec invests, Alberta, we invest $8 million a year in our culture. Quebec invests $3 billion a year in its culture for 9 million people. So the propaganda machine in Quebec is very well set, very well, and now everybody is afraid of Trump. So the Trump derangement syndrome is amongst the entire Quebec society. So that gives right now the opportunity to Plamondon, the leader of the Parti Québécois, to delay the referendum until Trump leave office. So that's how, and this is why they will come back in power, because basically they say we won't do a referendum as long as Trump is in office, basically. But they, so that way he kind of regroup is a pure independentist in the party and the soft one as well. But if Alberta wants his premier, if Alberta go and knock at his door and say let's do something together, they will be excited to work together.
The last question I have on the online audience, but that's kind of what I think we have discussed basically, is hold on a second, because I just showed up here. We all know that upon an independence negotiation, feds will be belligerent. Will a new Alberta have recourse or ability to extract fairness? That's actually what the question was.
So the question is, assuming the federal government will not negotiate in good faith,
yep,
does Alberta or the people of Alberta have recourse? Yes.
Yep.
And it comes back to what Zane said. The Clarity Act and the way Canada wants secession, or would prefer secession to happen with any province, is just that. It's a preference. It's not a requirement, it is a preference. Those two things, the will of the people and international recognition, are the only things that are needed. So it could go one of two ways. Negotiations go well, part ways like the Velvet Revolution, all's good, whatever, through the Clarity Act and yada yada. Or it doesn't, and Alberta just says, okay, we're out. Goodbye, see you. And that's that.
And the Clarity Act itself, like it was brought at the Common and got royal assent in 2000. And the day after royal assent, the Quebec legislature voted unanimous vote to reject that they won't apply the Clarity Act if ever they do another referendum. And what did Ottawa did? Nothing. So again, if we have a majority referendum, we don't have to obey at that point by the Clarity Act, not at all. So it's a non-issue. The Clarity Act is toilet paper.
And that brings up another very important thing. I didn't mention this, or maybe I did, I can't remember. I don't think I mentioned this earlier. Albertans have never had a choice. We didn't have a referendum, plebiscite, nothing like that to decide if we were going to join Confederation. We had no say in what the Constitution looked like. We did not get a say in how we're going to be taxed, how equalization will work, or any of those things. We didn't. The Constitution was not written by groups of Canadians in constitutional conventions from sea to shining sea to decide how we want to self-govern. That Constitution came from the British North America Act, which was an act of British Parliament that imposed on Canada a governance and a set of rules that they had to live by. We didn't do it. So when I say Alberta must become independent, what I'm saying is Alberta is rejecting that. We are rejecting that constitution that claims governance over us, and we are saying we are grown up enough now to collectively decide how we consent to being governed. That's the opportunity. And that's why I can't stress this enough, that this has never been done in Canada before. Canadians have never, ever got a real say in how they're going to be governed. And I pointed this out a couple nights ago. The rights that you all know that you have, they didn't come from the government. They came from God. You are born with them as human beings. And a nation is supposed to have a constitution that reflects the willingness and the consent of those human beings whose rights are from God to, from time to time, set aside those rights to peacefully coexist. That's what it is. We're consenting to being governed. I don't have a king. I have one king. I don't have a king on this earth. And that, when the will of the people speaks to that, the Constitution that we have right now is irrelevant. It is not something that can be imposed on you without your consent as a collective society. When the collective society of Alberta decides they no longer want to do that and they want to do it themselves, that's all they need. And that's backed with international law and thousands of years of history. If this wasn't the case, there would be 2 countries on the globe. There would be none. Because the idea that the country you're leaving has to give permission to the region that no longer consents to being governed like that goes completely against the idea of freedom, the idea of democracy, and the idea of free choice. And mostly, humanity still embraces those ideas, at least on an international level. So no, we don't have to go and worry what Canada wants. We have to worry what Alberta is going to do. Or we don't. I mean, it's really up to you. Well, I think that's pretty much it for questions, and the timing is working out great. So thank you very much for coming. And I do want to give a good shout out to my friend Max over there, who shows up to these.
Thanks.
He shows up to these events. He doesn't ask for anything. He does all the sound. He's here hours early, and he's been a huge help. So if you folks want to support Max, and the folks online already know this, go to freedomcalendar.net, follow his channels. His social media he does a very, a fantastic job with making sure these things are posted online. He cuts them down into 30-second clips that are easily digestible you can send to your friends. Support him like that, and maybe give him a shout out on social media and a share as well. And in doing so, you're not just supporting Max, but you're also supporting the independence movement, because his material is fantastic.
Awesome, thanks.
One more thing. Next week's event, James River Bridge, I believe. Next Friday. You hear that, folks? Next Friday, James River Bridge. It's only a 30-minute drive from here. So, with the amount of people we have here tonight, if everybody brings 4 people, we're going to have 8 people. Just kidding.
No.
No, bring your friends. Bring your friends that are on the fence. Bring your friends that are opposed. I won't be here. I'm going to be in Kansas with Jessica at something else. But, the other speakers and presenters are going to be happy to have these conversations. So James River Bridge, next Friday. Be there, or
Drayton Valley on Wednesday.
And Drayton Valley on Wednesday, and Benalto on Thursday.
That's right, yeah.
So Benalto is close too.
Towfield on Tuesday.
Half an hour.
Drayton Valley on Wednesday, Benalto on Thursday, and Friday is James River Bridge.
And if you can't remember that, you can always go to letstalkalberta.com, and you can find the schedule there, as well as the posters that you can share to your social media. And let's get back to packing these halls with concerned Albertans. Good night, everybody. Thank you very much.
And they're also on freedomcalendar.net as well.
One more thing here.
Can you please help put the tables and chairs away? It makes it go a lot quicker. Thank you.
Let's stack the chairs 10 high, if you wouldn't mind, and then we'll just come along with the dolly and take care of them. Thank you so much, guys. Good night.
Yeah. People like my microphones, apparently. Just gonna mute the main. Well, that's it. I will be there soon. See you there. I'm going to. If you go to freedomcalendar.net, you're gonna see the streaming links and the events from other groups as well. I know that Jason Levine has posted some events today, so I'm gonna catch on some of those. And thanks for tuning in. I'm gonna pack my things because it's gonna take probably 45 minutes to pack everything for me. So thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you for your super chats. Thank you very much for the kind words and the conversation on there. And see you next time around. Have a good one.